Constitution development. Introduction. What is a constitution? Why do we need a constitution? Constitutionalism or constitutional development of the Indian constitution. What is constitution? Though there is no single definition of constitution, still following are the general understanding of it. Constitution is a compact document that comprises a number of articles about the state, specifying how the state is to be constituted and what norms it should be followed. In some countries like UK, they do not have one single document that can be called as constitution. Rather, they have series of documents and decisions that taken collectively are referred to as constitution. Constitution is a fundamental law of the land, legus legum, or law of all laws. এটার মানে হচ্ছে এটা fundamental law in accordance with a nation or state is governed. Constitution give us the framework of polity, so the so-called trinity of our state legislature, executive and judiciary. Constitution provides the norms that govern the relationship with the trinity, determines the relationship between the states and the citizens. It is not a static document. Constitution is an organic one. It grows through amendments, judicial interpretations, conventions, not written or codified, non-punishable by law if it's violated. Like in UK, statutes or laws made by the legislatures. Convention, not written or codified. Why do we need a constitution? Constitution allows coordination and assurance. A constitution provides a set of basic rules that allow for coordination amongst the member of a society, specification of a decision-making power. A constitution specifies who has the power to make decision in a society. It decides how the government will be constituted. Limitations on the power of government. A constitution sets some limits on what a government can impose on its citizens. These limits are fundamental in the sense that government may never trespass them. Aspiration and goals of a society. Constitution's purpose is to enable the government to fulfill the aspiration of a society and create condition for a just society. Fundamental identity of a people. A constitution expresses the fundamental identity of a people. This means the people as a collective entity come into being only through the basic constitution. It is by agreeing that to a basic set of norms about how one should be governed and who should be governed that one forms a collective identity. It showcases our ideals and aspiration as also our conflicts. It creates and reflects an Indian identity and conveys as to what it means to be an Indian. What birth certificate is to a child, constitution is to a country. Constitution is a common normative home for the diverse elements of the Indian society. It is a set of basic rules for minimum coordination between various sections. Example, Dhamma of Ashoka and Din Ilahi of Akbar. It imposes legally enforceable restrictions on the state. It also gives legitimacy to the state and its action. A written constitution is essential for a federal setup. Constitutionalism, a system of government based largely on the ideals of Western liberal democracy, the essence of which is restrictions and limitations on the absolute power of the state. It is envisaged of the writings of J.S. Mill, Dicey, James Madison, Montesquieu, etc. Components of constitutionalism. Rule of law. All manners of people is equally subject to the ordinary law of the land as administered through ordinary code. It was given by Dicey. Exceptions. Existence of quasi-judicial bodies outside the regular courts, example administrative tribunals. Provision for the affirmative action reservation. Affirmative action is a term coined by J.F. Kennedy. Article 361, immunity to president and governor from criminal proceedings. The provision also carries potential to abuse, as was alleged in the case of Sheila Dixit being appointed as the governor of Kerala. Also, Rajasthan's governor Kalyan Singh in Babri Masjid case. Immunity from criminal prosecution is Western idea taken from British constitutional philosophy. Diplomatic immunity to foreign consular. Section 499 of IPC deals with the defamation defamation by speech, slander and by words libel. Exception to this Article 105, immunity against Section 499 of IPC, given to legislators with respect to anything said on the floor of the House. Article 105, members of the Parliament. Article 194, members of the state legislature. Absence of arbitrary power. Constitutionalism abhorred absolutism. Delegation of the powers must be complemented with appropriate norms guiding its use and safeguard to prevent its abuse. Constitution is the consequence, not the source of rights. It implies that the people can enjoy unenumerable rights as well, USA, but this dictum is not largely followed in the Indian constitutional philosophy. Indian constitution is uncomfortable with the idea of the customary rights or rights outside the constitution and statutes. Example, in India, only after FRA 206 tribal acts were recognized. Earlier, flying of drones were not allowed. After December 2018, it is allowed for commercial use only, with sets of restriction imposed by Ministry of Civil Aviation. Separation of powers. Functional separation into the Trinity, legislature, executive and judiciary, benefits it preserves democracy and civil liberties. It promotes division of labor, specialization, efficiency. It institutionalizes the system of checks and balances. It promotes debates and constructive friction between three organs, often leading to a better decision. Grant of basic civil rights, free press and media, temporariness of government elected every 5 years, independent judiciary. Conclusion of the constitutionalism, right to life, liberty, expression, residence, etc. can also be considered as the components of the constitutionalism. The Western idea of the constitutionalism is negative in orientation, as it principally seeks to restrict, limit and disempower the state. Ideally, the state must also be empowered adequately to enable it to deliver on the governance agenda. Thus, the right balance has to be struck between the needs of checking operation and preventing chaos in the society. Constitutional development in India. কোম্পানি রুল কবে থেকে ছিল? রেগুলেটিং অ্যাক্ট 1773, জুরিসডিকশন অ্যাক্ট 1781, তারপর হচ্ছে পিটস ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট 1784, অ্যাক্ট অফ 1786, চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1793, চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1813, চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1833, চার্টার অ্যাক্ট অফ 1853। তারপর হচ্ছে ক্রাউন রুল আসছে, দ্য গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট 1858, ইন্ডিয়ান কাউন্সিল অ্যাক্ট 1861, ইন্ডিয়ান কাউন্সিল অ্যাক্ট 1892, ইন্ডিয়ান কাউন্সিল অ্যাক্ট 1909, গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট 1919, সাইমন কমিশন 1927, কমিউনাল অ্যাওয়ার্ড 1932, গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট 1935, ইন্ডিয়ান ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্স অ্যাক্ট 1947। Company Rule 1773 to 1858. Regulating Act of 1773. Significance. This was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate the affairs of the East India Company in India. The political and the administrative function of the company were recognized for the first time. It laid the foundation for the central administration in India. Governor of Bengal was designated as the Governor General of Bengal, Fort William. Governor of Bombay and Madras became subordinate to the Governor General. Executive Council of 4 members was formed to assist the Governor General. Supreme Court established. Lord Impey was the first Chief Justice of the Bengal. Officers were prohibited from private trade or accepting bribe. Facts. First Governor General Warren Hastings. Supreme Court had 1 Chief Justice and 3 judges. The court heard cases with the help of any jury of the British subjects. The court heard cases with the help of any British subjects. The Court of Directors 24 had to submit the report on its revenue. Civil and military. তারপর আসছে Jurisdiction Act of 1781 features exempted public servants actions done during the official capacity from scrutiny of Supreme Court. Exempted public servants actions done during official capacity from scrutiny of Supreme Court. Jurisdiction over inhabitants of Calcutta and administer personal law of defendant. Supreme Court to consider religion and social customs while enforcing decrees. Appeal from provincial court to Governor General in Council is final for cases less than £5,000. If it is more than £5,000, then appeal is sent to King in Council. Pitt's India Act of 1784. Significance. For the first time, company's territory in India was called British possession in India. British government got complete control over companies' affairs and its administration. Features demarcated the political and the commercial function of the company. Commercial affairs to be merged by the board of directors. Political affairs to be managed by a newly formed board of control. Board of control can be supervise the operation of government and revenue. Executive council's members were decreased from 4 to 3. তারপর আসছে Act of 1786. Features to convince Cornwallis to accept the Governor Generalship by Pitt. Governor General got powers to override his council in extraordinary cases on his own responsibility. Charter Act of 1793 features company privileges extend to 20 years. Power to override council by Governor General was extended to all future Governor Generals and Governors. All the members' salary was to be paid from Indian revenue. Practice upon 1919. Permission for East India Company to ship opium from India to China. Country privileges given to the officials of the East India Company. To trade outside India. Charter Act 1813 features monopoly ended except for tea trade and trade with China. Allotted 1 lakh annually for education and improvement of literature and science, etc. Christian missionaries allowed to preach in India. The Charter Act of 1833 significance came in the wake of the Industrial Revolution and liberal principles in England. The Act created for the first time a government of India having authority over the state territorial area. Act created for the first time a government of India having authority over the state territorial area possessed by the British. Features: Governor General of Bengal was designated as the Governor General of India. Bombay and Madras Presidency lost their legislation powers. Governor General got complete control over civil and military affairs. A law member was added as the 4th member to the Governor General Council. Law Commission was constituted. In 1834, laws made from these acts were named as Acts, previously called regulations. Government makes act while company makes regulations. So East India Company started acting as government. Government made acts while company make regulation. So East India Company started acting as government. East India Company had to end its monopoly over commercial activities, became an administrative body only. Facts: First Governor General of India, William Bentinck. T.B. Macaulay became the first law member, also the first law commission chairman. This act tried but failed to introduce open competition for civil services. Section 87, no discrimination to office under company between Indians and the British residents. Abolition of slavery by Act 5 of 1843. Charter Act of 1853, a separate governor was appointed for the Bengal, extended the company's rule to possess Indian territories, no specific tenure. For the first time, separated the legislature and the executive functions of the Governor General Council. The first time, separated the legislature and the executive. Open competition was introduced to recruit civil services. Macaulay Committee was introduced to recruit civil services. Number of court of directors at London were reduced from 24 to 18. Legislation became a separate entity. Central Legislative Council was formed, comprising of 6 legislative members, 4 members from the local provincial government, 2 members from the 2 members appointed by the British, 1 Chief Justice of Calcutta and 1 Puissant Judge of Calcutta. তারপর আসছে Constitutional Development 2. দ্য ক্রাউন রুল, যেটা হচ্ছে দ্য গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট 1858, দিস কেম ইন্টু বিং আফটার দ্য সিপাই মিউটিনি অফ 1857, features abolish the East India Company, the British Crown assumed sovereignty over India from the East India Company, the designation of the Governor General of India was changed to Viceroy of India, the last Governor General of India was Lord Canning, the first Viceroy of India was Lord Canning. A new position called Secretary of the State was created, and the powers of the crowns were exercised by the Secretary of the State for India. The Secretary of State for India is a member of Cabinet and is responsible to the British Parliament. The Secretary of the State for India was assisted by a council called the Council of India that contained 15 members. The council was composed exclusively of people from England. The Secretary of State of India, who was responsible to the British Parliament, governed India through Governor General, assisted by an executive council which consisted of higher officials of the government. Indian Council Act of 1861 features. Executive Council was enlarged by the addition of the fifth member. The Viceroy was empowered to appoint an additional 6 to 12 members to his council, changed to 16 in 1892 and to 60 in 1909. The Viceroy of India would nominate 3 Indians to the Legislative Council out of 12. In the year 1862, Lord Canning nominated Raja of Benares and Maharaja of Patiala, Sir Dinakar Rao, to the Legislative Council. Functions of these Indian members were strictly limited to making legislations subjected to Viceroy's approval. They were forbidden from interfering in the matters of the Executive Council. They did not possess the power of administration and finance. By means of this act, people of India came to be involved in the law-making process of British rule for the first time. Portfolio system approved. Lord Canning introduced portfolio system in the year 1859. This act also empowered the Viceroy to issue ordinances. Legislative power to Madras and Bombay presidencies. legislative power to the Madras and Bombay presidencies দেওয়া হয়েছিল।